Hey good people, and welcome back to the channel. It's a wonderful Saturday morning, and I have the pleasure of sharing with you my thoughts and feelings on the Season 3 finale of Put a Ring on It. One thing that I can truly say about this series is that I'm glad that it's nearly over. For me, the beginning of Season 3 started off very promising, but somewhere towards the season's halfway mark, the antics from the couples became more and more silly, and I started losing interest in reviewing the show. But I won't bore you any longer, so let's jump into the review. Episode 11 picks up with the couples meeting with Dr. Nicole for a group session. Of course, Alfonso, Shay, Charlie, and Otis all show up together, but when it's time for Kenny and Shorty to show up, Shorty shows up by herself first, then Kenny shows up a little bit later. If I were a betting man, then I would say that all the couples already knew that Shorty and Kenny had already broken up prior to the filming of the scene. But Dr. Nicole gives Shorty and Kenny a chance to explain what happened, and this causes yet another argument between the two of them. But their journey has officially come to an end on the show, and Dr. Nicole urges the two of them to work on themselves so that they don't bring whatever brokenness they have into their next relationship. However, anybody watching this episode could tell by this point, Shorty and Kenny weren't trying to hear anything Dr. Nicole was saying. Now, if you've been following my reviews for this season of Put a Ring on It, then you already know how I feel about Shorty and Kenny. If not, then allow me to provide a summary. I was never a fan of Shorty and Kenny being together. I felt that the ridiculous actions by Kenny and the demeaning words from Shorty did nothing but add fuel to their already toxic relationship. And if by some reason they managed to stay together, then I would have called BS and thought that they were just on the show for exposure. But when Kenny and Shorty leave the group session, Dr. Nicole then focuses her attention on the remaining couples by asking them about their dates from the previous episode. The only response worth mentioning in this segment was Charlie when Dr. Nicole questioned her about going out with GVO. Now Charlie claims that GVO made her feel noticed and valued, but when Dr. Nicole asks Otis about Charlie's comments, he claims that it's hard to compliment Charlie when she's cursing him out and whatnot. Now from a logical perspective, I have to agree with Otis, because it can be hard to turn the other cheek or take the high road whenever someone shows you attitude and disrespect. But in my opinion, if Otis truly wants to be in a relationship with Charlie and he wants it to work, he needs to be wrong and she needs to be right 100% of the time. If Charlie tells Otis what she needs from him, he needs to give it to her without question or expectation of anything in return. Towards the end of the group session, Dr. Nicole asked the guys to go to a jewelry store and pick out wedding rings for their girlfriends. To me, this part of the episode was complete filler, and there's really no sense in talking about it. Shay and Otis then have their separate one-on-one sessions with Dr. Nicole. Shay is the first to meet with Dr. Nicole, and while talking about Shay's journey on the show, Dr. Nicole compliments Shay on making a lot of progress during the journey. Now maybe I was nodding off during some of the episodes, but I haven't seen any evidence to show that Shay made any progress in the areas that matter. We all know what Alfonso's issues are, and Shay will refuse to marry Alfonso until those issues are resolved. But Shay also had issues with her attitude and how she perceived reality, and maybe that was addressed off camera, but I didn't see it addressed on camera. Otis then meets with Dr. Nicole, and they have a disagreement on the state of Otis and Charlie's relationship. Otis feels that things are good between the two of them, while Dr. Nicole doesn't feel that way. And I have to agree with Dr. Nicole. At least from the outside looking in, Otis and Charlie are not on the same page, and in my opinion, either Otis is delusional about Charlie's needs, or Otis and Charlie have always been good, and they've been lying to us this entire time in order to get exposure from the show. Much of the remainder of this episode was just filler in my opinion, but by the end of the episode, Shay and Charlie said yes to their respective marriage proposals. The only surprise was how things went down. Brother Otis took Charlie to a nice, free park to propose to Charlie, and the shirt that he was wearing was making me think I was on an acid trip. But he also brought some flowers, and that seemed to be the end of that. Big baller Alfonso, on the other hand, takes Shay on a private helicopter ride to a hangar where there's a romantic setup, and that's where he pops the question. I'm not sure who paid for all of that, but it looks somewhat expensive. But overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give this episode a 4. The episode contained more filler than normal, much of the couple's issues were still unresolved by the end of the episode, and the Shorty and Kenny fiasco just proved that they wasted the time of all the viewers, as well as their own on the show. With the reunion airing next week, The previews are looking very interesting, and I can't wait to see how the couples have progressed since the ending of the show. But this marks the end of the review. If you have any comments about the review or the episode, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to reply to each and every comment. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.